Ezra, thank you so much, man, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. This is like the eighth time we've tried to do this, and it has now worked out. So thank you, dude. Being
Yeah,
on the road, being willing to jump on, huge pleasure.
yeah. Apologies. I'm in my cousin's apartment here in Los Angeles. I've got literally have a microphone in a mug in a mason jar. So that's how I'm rolling. I forgot my laptop, my microphone stand. I do record a lot on the road
Yeah.
when I speak at these events and stuff. And I actually kind of like this mason jar setup. It's not bad.
Dude, mason jars are the bomb. I drink out of
Yeah,
them. I eat out of them. They're
yeah.
there for you, dude.
Yeah, they've become a thing now. Mason jars have like have penetrated the mainstream culture, and like they have mason jar mugs, and like there's a whole mason jar culture,
It's like
especially.
the Kleenex because you call it a
Yes,
mason jar now.
yes, exactly. In hipster Brooklyn, man, where I spend time, I don't identify as a hipster actually, but I know I may look the part. But mason jars are all the rage. All the restaurants are using mason jars, like a whole thing.
That's amazing, dude. Well, hey, just so you know, when I was first looking at e-commerce and saying I've got to figure out how to do this, go screen to screen online, it was your videos that I consumed irrationally. Everything that you had on YouTube, I would fall asleep, wake up with, my headphones in. So, dude, you've been an incredible inspiration to me and in the space like a mentor. So thank you for all of the stuff that you put out there, all of the work you do, all of the pioneering that you've done. It's really impacted everybody in the industry. And I especially think with the way that the information is now broadly available, it's going to have an even greater impact in the next couple of years. So thank you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And, I obviously have been watching what you're up to and respect what you're doing and think that it's super cool that you're broadcasting this content to a new sort of wave of folks. And you're a great teacher. So I appreciate that. And, I didn't expect to be the first e-commerce influencer. I just was like a guy who was super into e-commerce, and I got lucky because I got into it young enough, like when I was like 18, I'm now 30, to where it was just taken off. And I sort of started documenting my journey and then found that actually I really liked talking about what I was doing. And so I didn't intend to, I didn't set out to be an influencer. It just kind of happened. And I've really enjoyed the ride, so far, and I intend to keep doing it. So thank you for watching my stuff.
Absolutely, man. It's a great ride. Hey, when people look and they see someone like Ezra Firestone, they see this end product and they see the polished statue. And oftentimes that's just like so out there that they say that's like enigma. That's not me. But
Yeah.
what's the real zero to hero story?
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think that a lot of what you consume of people on social is a curated identity. It's who you want people to see you as in the world. It's not your everyday. It's not where you are emotionally. It's not you're not necessarily sharing the dark sides of what's going on. You're mostly sharing the light, bright side. And, for me, I grew up in an alternative lifestyle environment on best way to describe it would be a hippie commune. And we were broke, man. I've had this journey, if you just want to talk about the financial side of it, of identifying as a poor person growing up and being poor, eating the school lunches, hand-me-down clothes, not having a lot of money, and not realizing that I identified that way until I became rich. I'm now have more money than most people that I know. And that's been an interesting journey, in as much as you confront the prejudices and preconceived judgments that you hold about people with money, people without money. It's been a really interesting experience going from, poor to rich. But when you look at my journey, I moved to New York when I was 18 years old to, play poker for a living at these underground clubs. And that was really cool. It's a whole
Wow.
other kind of story. I had this nickname, Johnny, how you doing? That's what they called me. But I was really good at it. And after a year, I was kind of looking around and thinking this is kind of a degenerative lifestyle. You're up all night, you sleep all day, you're under fluorescent lights. There are no women anywhere in sight. It's just a bunch of degenerates. It's like, you know what? This is not really for me. And I met a guy who was a life coach. And this was back, I want to say in 2004, 2005, before, now there are relationship coaches, health coaches, business coaches. But the idea of coaching had not yet really made it mainstream. It was still sort of a new thing. And the interesting thing about coaching is, to this day, there's really no governing body over someone calling themselves a coach. Any schmo off the street can say, I'm a coach, and charge someone for coaching sessions, right? Which is good and bad. But I met a guy who was the pioneer of this industry. Obviously, Tony Robbins has been around for a long time, but what he was doing was he was selling, get this, business opportunity content online on how to become a life coach. He was
Really?
teaching people how to become a life coach 10 years ago, and he was using the visibility source of the day. And by the way, all we do as e-commerce entrepreneurs is use a visibility source to sell a product. So what he was doing was using the visibility source of the day, which was search engine optimization. He was ranking his websites for things like make money online, or things that were, back in the day, 10 years ago, you could actually rank for. And then he was selling information books on how to become a life coach. And he had a great business doing this. And I thought to myself, this guy is traveling around. He was the digital nomad, to use our the parlance of our time. He's making money off his laptop. I'm hanging out with a bunch of degenerates in a dangerous environment. I ought to learn this. And so through him, I learned search engine optimization. I started working for him as an article marketer because, dude, you got to teach me this. You got to teach me what's going on. I learned how to generate visibility through search engine optimization. I started doing that for other companies. I started doing it as a service provider. And then I realized, and through that, I sort of picked up things, and there were no courses. There were only these crazy underground forums, weird little subcultures. It was like a total, there was no women. Also, you'd go to these conferences, it'd be like 30 dudes, you know what I mean? Maybe one woman. So it was like really seedy. And back then, being labeled an internet marketer, like internet marketing and online marketing, digital marketing, was not the industry it is today. People thought you sold porn or did casino stuff. They were like, oh, you said you were an internet marketer, and people were like, oh, like what? Like really? Like that's shady. It just had this negative connotation. And anyways, through that guy, I ended up taking over his business and learning about landing page optimization, sales psychology, product launches, webinars, all this kind of stuff way back in the day. And what I realized was after a year or two of that, I had sort of, and by the way, visibility was a lot easier back then, getting visibility for a multi-SKU product business or any product business, because search engine optimization was not particularly difficult and buying traffic hadn't really hit its heyday. And so I was like, man, why am I using this skill set that I've developed to build other people's businesses? I should build my own business. And so I started a drop ship e-commerce business selling costume wigs in 2006. And I was the number one retailer of mullet wigs in America, and Elvis wigs, Afro wigs for a couple of years running there, and that was great. And then what I realized through that, and so that allowed me to, to learn about e-commerce and learn about, everything that comes along with having an e-commerce business. And through that, I realized that actually drop shipping was such a great way to get started, because you can earn revenue. You don't have to house inventory. You can use your skill set of driving traffic, which today, the visibility source of the day is like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. There's a lot of visibility sources, influencers, joint ventures, whatever. But a lot of people are going out and buying traffic today and using drop shipping as a way to get started. So I kind of use that as a stepping stone to generate revenue that allowed me to then build my own private label / manufacturing business where I am today. Now I have over 60 employees. I've got a business that's going to do like 27 million this year. Total 20 million of which will come from e-commerce. 7 million will come from software as a service and information publishing. If we hit our projections, I think we will. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a short form.
It does, man. So, and that's amazing. Early on, finding those people that help you put you on the path is absolutely critical. But if you could look back and you could say, there was a moment when I was beat down to my knees because it was just the world conspired against me. And maybe it was '08, I don't know when, but what was that moment and how did you resurface? Because most people in that fire, they go one way and they go back to business school, right? Or they decide to stand back up.
So here's the one piece of advice I would give to new entrepreneurs today is, here's the moment was I had this ebook on how to start a catering business. And I had worked so hard on this. I got so emotionally attached to this product. And I could not, you got to know when to stick with things and when to leave. I could not give up on this thing because it was my identity. It performing well was how I viewed myself as a person. It wasn't that hey, this project that I worked on didn't work, no big deal. It was no, somehow I was a flawed person if this thing didn't work. I was emotionally invested in it. And you know what? It wasn't working. And I nearly bankrupted my wife and I, who at the time we only had $5,000. We had to live on her yoga earnings for a year because I had spent all our money on this failed business opportunity that I was trying to make work. And so that was a real tough one for me. And then, I'm getting to the piece of advice that I would give you. Another tough point, which led me to the piece of advice that I'm going to give, is when search engine optimization went out, when like Google started changing their algorithms around 2011, 2012, Panda, Penguin, Hummingbird, they started making it harder and harder for people to manipulate the search results, which had been like what people were doing up to that point. I saw like half of the business owners that I knew go out of business because they had one form of visibility that was working for their brand. And when that went away, they didn't have a brand, they didn't have a customer base, they didn't have community, they didn't have anything. And so what I realized at that point was that like, what I've known my whole life is that the skill set that you want as a human being is the skill set of mastery, which is simply the willingness to put your attention in one area consistently over time. Pick up an instrument for 30 minutes a day, you get better at that. And so I decided at that time that I was never going to be put in the spot again of having my business be solely reliant on one visibility source and someone else's on free traffic, basically. So at that time, just around 2011, I was like, I am going to master paid advertising. And I'm going to focus on that. Just like one of the things that I've focused on in my life is mastering the art of interpersonal communication. I've spent my whole childhood and now my whole adulthood has been about how do I become a better communicator? How do I be able to be more able to listen to people and have compassion for where they're at in their life? Like, how can I effectively communicate? Because ultimately, I think that marketing is messaging, conversion is communication, and that your success in life will come down to your ability to communicate as a human being. I believe that strongly. So I've focused on mastering that and putting attention on it. And so, anyways, the focus, and this is what I would say to anyone who's getting started in e-commerce today, that there's some things that you really want to get good at, but one of them is the ability to buy visibility for a brand. Because if you master that skill set, and yeah, it's always changing, but it really hasn't changed. Yeah, okay, maybe it was when I got started Google AdWords, and then Google Display Network, and now Facebook, and then upcoming Pinterest and Instagram. Next it's who knows, but there's always been these opportunities. Like, people think they missed the opportunity, but you know what? Every time I've turned around, there's a new opportunity. It was Amazon. It was AdSense. It was Facebook. It's Instagram. Now it's, Shopify and Drive, whatever it is. There's always some new frontier. There's always some new opportunity. But if you start to really invest in the skill set of learning how to buy visibility, it'll work for every brand you ever start. You can use it as a service provider for other companies if things don't go well for you. Like, it's a great skill set to have, because you know what? You follow guys like Trevor Chapman, you're going to learn the conversion stuff. You're going to learn how to structure your pages. You're going to learn how to pick products. You're going to learn the things that you need to learn you get what you want from people who have it. Find someone who's doing what you want, learn it from them, right? But the one thing that I feel is like has really been a recipe for my success is I understand how to buy visibility at scale. Now, I understand a lot about the business now because I've been in it for a long time, but like that key skill set has been very crucial, very important to the success of my brands. And I really believe in ad model businesses that are driven by paid advertising, because there's always somewhere you can go to buy visibility. And if you understand how to structure a good offer, how to have good messaging and communication, how to do good follow-up marketing and engage someone in a conversation and get them to buy from you again. Like, if you understand the business like you teach people, Trevor, then having a mastery of the ability to buy visibility gives you a lot of power.
That's powerful, man. If you look back to how you grew up, because I too grew up absurdly poor, how did that shape what you do today? Like, was it a negative? Because I've had friends who did, and they can't shake the mindset. And so they self-sabotage. What really on the deepest level did that do for you or to you?
I think it definitely gave me a little bit of extra ambition, because I remember looking around at the group of people that I grew up around and thinking, these people really have a lot together. They really have, like, everyone is like happy in their relationships, which you don't find very often in our society. People are not overworked. People are like really enjoying their life, and I think that groups of people, like, you got to have all sides of the emotional spectrum. You got to have bad and good in your life, or you don't appreciate the good. Like, people actually want the full range of emotions. They don't just want things to be good all the time. They want to experience the emotional spectrum of happiness, sadness, like triumph. Like, you actually want that as a human being. And so what this group would come together around was scarcity around money. And I was like, I can solve this. I am going to go out and figure out how to generate wealth so like I had that ambition. But I also feel like one of the things that happens is when you're super hungry, you'll kind of almost do anything to make a dollar. And like what I found with my wife was, like, one of the things that she did early on in our business was I was more willing to walk like a gray area you know, and she was like, has always held the integrity, held the moral line, held the like, no, I don't want to do this because it doesn't feel right. And so what happens is once you get to the point where you are taken care of financially, which in our society, in Western society, if you're watching this, you're American, you're a European, you're someone who lives in like a developed nation, is around $80,000 to $100,000 a year in annual income. Once you make it there, more money is not going to bring you more fulfillment, because it turns out that like money can buy you comfort, but it can't buy you happiness. And fulfillment comes from being connected to your community, having intimacy with other people, feeling like you have a purpose in life. Like there's all these things that actually bring internal fulfillment. And what we're sold in society as men in particular, women are not sold this as much, but as men in particular, we are sold very heavily that our value in the world comes from the amount we produce. The amount of money we make is directly in line with the value that we hold in society. And what you find is a lot of people who've made a lot of money but are angry and feel very poor. Like the example of the guy who had a fucking payphone, pardon my language, you guys, had a payphone in his lobby and he was like the richest guy ever. I don't remember this, but like people feel poor and they feel scarce even if they have a lot of money, and they feel like they're not like happy in their life. So the one piece of advice that I would give, and I know I've given multiple pieces of advice, so I'll stop using the language of the one piece of advice. I will give multiple pieces of advice, it turns out, is do whatever it takes to figure out what is an enjoyable life for you. And I'm not saying don't hustle. I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying don't strive for goals. I'm not saying don't play the game of wealth creation. That's fun. And it's only one part of your life. And so what I've done is really tried to identify what brings me joy and fulfillment. Well, I know for a fact that it's feeling connected to my community, feeling like I really have openness and connection and intimacy with my wife, feeling like I've got, a hobby that I'm really involved in, which is jujitsu for me. I love that sport. Like having things in my life beyond just work, because I find that like and I've gone through phases, as every entrepreneur does, of most of my life being just about business. I feel really out of balance. I feel really anxious. I feel really stressed. Like it doesn't actually work for me to have everything I'm doing be about my production cycle. And I find that my production cycles, my businesses go much better when I am in a state of when I'm in a more fulfilled state, to use sort of lingo-y terms. I don't know how to articulate it any better than that, but when I'm happier, things go better. And what makes me happier is having a bit of balance. So I would say try to figure out what that is for you, and figure out a way to like put some time aside to like not be working on work, but like maybe going out and having fun or doing a hobby or playing a sport or whatever it is for you in your life, because it actually ends up like you don't see this when you're young. I'm only 30, right? So I'm still pretty young. I'm about to be 31, but I've been in this game now for 12 or 13 years, and I was always hustling before that. I always had some little business. I was selling jelly beans, or I had a lawnmower business or whatever it was. And what you don't account for is that it's a marathon and not a sprint. And that basically you want to farm, you want to plant seeds and water them every day. And the older that you get, and I would say if you're 20 some odd watching this, you'll see this as you get older. The older that you get, you realize that actually what you're playing is a lifelong game, and that what you want to have is energy into perpetuity. And what you start to see, and I have unfortunately had to confront this in my life and my circle of friends and the people in this industry, is people burning out, people having nervous breakdowns, people falling off. And like, it's really heavy to confront that, like, you actually don't want to sprint full out because you can't sustain the space. What you want to do is figure out how to work smart. Everyone says take massive action. And it's like, yeah, but what if you do that in the wrong direction, which I have done? Then you screw yourself, because now you've taken massive action. You got to dig yourself out of that hole. So I would say take informed action, be a little more deliberate, move a little slower. And it's hard to do when you're hungry in particular. Once you're not hungry anymore, once you're somewhat fulfilled and making some money, it's a lot easier to play from this space. But if you can figure out how to start playing from this space, because it's a daily practice, you're always going to be some new idea, some new shiny object, some new opportunity, some new reason why you got to work 13, 15 hours a day. Like it's always going to be there. So you got to work on that. You know what I mean? You got to work on not letting your business cycle take over your whole world. And that's been a big lesson for me in the last 4 or 5 years, is slowing down, playing more from a marathon perspective, playing more from I'm watering seeds every day, and I'm going to grow trees that are going to, produce mangoes every year instead of going out trying to spear a fish, And that doesn't mean we don't do launches. Doesn't mean we don't do big sales events. Like we still go out and do that, but it's not our strategy. Our strategy is more cohesive. Our strategy is more long-term. Our strategy takes into account more than one cash payday, right?
I love that. And I love looking at large Japanese businesses that write a 200-year business plan.
Oh my
And they
God.
work backwards from that because
I've never
that
seen that.
doesn't, oh, dude, I'll send you some info on it. It's
Yeah.
incredible. So to rebound off of what you just said, everybody on the planet wishes that they perhaps had what you have or what the next guy have. Now, fewer people will take that out of their mind and actually talk about it and
Sure.
say it and commit to it, etc.
Sure.
But the ones that actually do it, they're the ones that have daily small things daily that occur regardless, that over time build up and brick by brick, not one
Yeah.
big, like what you're talking about, one big
Sure.
boulder of massive action. For you, what are those really small things that regardless, daily or every other day, you do that you can directly look back and attribute what you've built now to those small things?
I mean, I believe in this thing I said earlier, which is you get what you want from people who have it. And a lot of my success, now, I've created great brands. I've done really awesome marketing campaigns. I've done a lot of things right, but a lot of the success that I've had, I can directly draw back to one relationship or another relationship. So what I've done very well is been the catalyst for creating community. I was putting on masterminds in 2008 when I didn't know much, being like, I will cover the cost of the room, you guys. It's going to be in this place on this date, calling people, inviting them. I want to be the bartender at the party. I want to be the guy that everyone comes to because they want to drink. You know what I mean? I want to be playing from the position of creating community, because then I get to talk to everyone. I get to see what everyone's doing, and I end up benefiting. Everyone benefits from it. It's serve the world unselfishly and profit. So I think one of the things that you can do is be the catalyst for creating community around your goals. Find other people who share those goals and make the meeting space happen. Put on the event, throw the party, invite people, like make that happen, because you will benefit. Everyone will benefit, and you'll benefit more than everyone else. And you're doing that right now. You're being the catalyst for creating this community around this virtual summit, and it's going to profit you and it's going to profit everyone. It's a beautiful thing. And so I think that I've done that really, really well. I've also been consistent, just like we're talking about. Like I've been doing this now for 12 years. It's why I have an 8-figure brand. And people like try to measure themselves against me. And I'm like, dude, you're 1 year in the game. Talk to me in a decade of having done this really consistently. Yes, and failed. Yes, and almost gone bankrupt, in the early days. Yes, and had things not work out the way you want them to work out. Yes, and had, a $200,000 loss on a failed product launch because the formula wasn't correct last year. Like your failures get bigger as the stakes get bigger, right? Like you mess one thing up, and what used to cost me a couple grand if I mess something up now costs me a couple $100,000. So like you're gonna experience loss and failure, but the key is to understand that, like, and this is like, now you're getting into Buddhist philosophy and stuff, but like that the goal is the journey. The goal is to be doing this thing that you love and working towards something. And actually the inspiration comes from actually doing the stuff. Like no one plans for once they've succeeded. It's why everyone gets out of college and looks around and is dumbfounded on what to do, because all they'd been planning for and thinking about was going to college. They didn't ever think about what do they do when they get out. So you've got to plan for what happens. Okay, you want to make 10 grand a month, which seems to be what everyone wants when they first start in this business. Then the next thing is, I want to make $100,000 a month. I want to make $1 million. It's kind of where people leave it. Nobody really plans for bigger than that. Really, really. When I talk to thousands of entrepreneurs, and it's always like people who are just getting started want 10 grand a month. People who've made that want 100 grand a month. So they're making $1 million a year. And then nobody is really planning for a bigger payday or a bigger game than that. Nobody's got very few people have some mission or goal or something that is beyond serving themselves, because they're operating from this viewpoint of hunger. They're operating from this viewpoint of trying to get what they want. And I would say it would be to your benefit of getting what you want to participate in some bigger conversation beyond just your own goals, I don't remember your question. I'm not sure if that answered it.
No, you've been answering it. Yeah, it was about the small things. That's
Small things daily is stay in it, man. Just really stay in it. Really stay committed. Be consistent, because consistency is really what it's about. It's about showing up every day with a positive attitude and taking a few steps in the direction of your goal. And it might take you 5 years to get there. It might take you 10 years to get there. It might take you 6 months to get there. Who knows? But like the deal is that while you're doing it, you're enjoying it, and you're doing it every day or every couple days. Like you're staying in it. And that I have done really well. I've been in this and I've enjoyed every moment of it. And I've taken every opportunity that's become available. I've been willing to take risks. I've been playing, and if you play long enough, you get good. And once you get good, you tend to win more than you lose, which is awesome. It doesn't mean that every brand that I try to start works, by the way. I have several brands that have not worked, but the ones that have worked really, really well. And so it's not like you're going to hit a home run every time. You can't expect that. But you can expect that you'll get a little bit better. You'll get a little bit smarter. You'll learn from your past experiences. You'll do it a little bit different next time, and like I'm planning my next brand right now. I have Smart Marketer, Zipify, Boom, and Be Friendly that are really my public brands, and Boom being the biggest of that. And I'm looking towards an exit on one of these companies. I like to have 2 or 3 projects that I'm working on. I just enjoy that diversity. And so I'm looking at, okay, what's going to be my next brand when this exit happens? So that's like a fun conversation. It's like, what's coming next,
Yeah. So if we were able to create this time vortex and we've got you today, the 8-figure Ezra, what is the main differences that publicly we would see between who you are now and the 6-figure earner, right? Yeah. And internally, what do you think those differences are?
It's actually very similar. And what it is I spent my whole career driving, doing everything, setting everything up, designing everything. I've spent my career in it, doing it. And when you come up broke and you come up bootstrapping and you come up with no money and no resource, you do everything yourself. And the lesson that I've learned that took me from 7 to 8 figures is how to delegate and how to navigate rather than drive. Because when I'm on the road driving, I can't look up and see what the next mountain is, what roads are coming up. I can't navigate. I have to be driving. And so I put out a whole training course on this recently about how I've structured my business from a systems perspective to be more in the role of holding the creative vision, holding the container, navigating where we're going, and not actually doing that much stuff. So really today, my job is much more about thinking, strategizing, talking to people, checking out what's going on, networking than it is actually doing anything, which is way more fun for me. I really enjoy it. I like being like, hey, let's do this thing. And then my copywriters and designers and everyone run off and do something and show me. And I'm like, well, change this, I do a lot of directing. I play, like Steve Jobs, play the orchestra. That's what I do now. I play the orchestra. I don't actually play the violin or the guitar, which I did my whole career. I played every instrument along the way. And now things are at and look, this is not a realistic goal if you're just starting out. A realistic goal if you're just starting out is do as much of it as you can yourself because you don't got any money. I've been there, but as you have things that are repetitive cycles like customer support, like setting up the ads, which I think you should do yourself for a while, like whatever it is, whatever are the repetitive cycles in your business, get someone in there. Get the everything person in first. One person who shadows you, that you trust, hopefully a family member or someone you really know and like, and you don't feel like is going to rip you off once they learn your whole operation. Bring them in, teach them everything, and then start getting them to do whatever it is that is taking your time. Maybe they can come up with product ideas. Maybe they can learn how to run the ads. Maybe they can do all the customer support and ordering. Like, get them in there to do every cycle that they can do, which frees you up as the person who's running the operation to have more time for what's coming next and what marketing campaigns should we go through and consuming courses like Trevor's. Like, get that everything person in there because it's like when I look at it, I figure one person can easily get to 6 figures. And sometimes 7 figures. 2 to 3 people can very easily get to 7 figures. And then if you just look at generally how it works, obviously there are anomalies, but generally how it works is 1 person 6 figures, 2 to 3 7 figures, and then 3 to 6 plus outsourcers 8 figures you can get to. And so I try to get that second person in for new entrepreneurs as quickly as I can, being someone that will essentially work for free to be a part of what's going on, learn everything, and then start to get paid as the business is successful. And like I did this with my family. I brought in my cousin, then I brought in another cousin because I knew them, I trusted them, and I brought them up in the game. And now they're my senior level people in my company of 60, and they're my inner circle. They're the people who actually tell me the truth, who won't just shine me on because I'm the boss and tell me I'm great. They'll be like, nah, I've known you since you get it. You know what I mean? They don't buy into the hype of me. They just shoot me straight. And I think those people are important in your life.
Hey, so how much of your success is due to the Ezra Firestone content brand? And so I'm going to try and word this the best way to make this obscure concept understandable. So the Ezra Firestone content, the
smart marketer,
character, smart marketer, etc. How much of your success is as a result of that versus if there was no Ezra Firestone content brand, how would things look differently?
Okay. So my e-commerce businesses were doing well long before I had a blog. My Costume Wigs, my first ever wig website that I sold for several $100,000 back in the early, late 2000s. Smart Marketer and Zipify I think are directly successful because of who I am in the industry, the relationships that I've created, the successes that I've had, the content that I've put out, the places I speak on stages and podcasts. Like Smart Marketer and Zipify at this point do not exist without Ezra Firestone. And those brands together will do between $5 and $7 million in revenue this year. My e-commerce brands, which have nothing to do with my personality, people who buy from them have no idea who Ezra Firestone is. They're just brands out there, will do about 20 million, hopefully a little bit more. So my bigger successes are my physical product brands. But here's the interesting thing. When you look at a $20 million physical products company, right, is, I've got 7 or 8 million in cost of goods. I got 4 or 5 million in ads. I got $1 million in salary. I got other related marketing expenses. I got a couple $1,000,000 in profit at the end of the year. Profit wise, Smart Marketer and Zipify are fairly close. They're not quite as big as Boom and Be Friendly. However, Smart Marketer, you can never sell it. It's based on my personality. It's based on me as a human being the driving force, the teacher, the trainer. It's not an asset. It's a cash flow business. Now, I think of my businesses in terms of permaculture. Permaculture is a farming term. And it means to reuse your resources to their best benefit, capture the rainwater, water the garden. So Boom and Be Friendly provide examples and case studies. I innovate in my e-commerce businesses. Then I document what works. I share it over on Smart Marketer. I share it in terms of courses. Any money that I make there, I dump back into investing in the e-commerce businesses. And now I have Zipify, which is a software as a service company for Shopify stores, an app company. And the goal of that is, number one, I do a bunch of custom development. I'm good at development. I've been developing for 10 years. I have a developer staff. So why not take what's working for me and give it to the community, sell it to the community. And it gives me a way to take Smart Marketer and turn it into an asset business, because Zipify is much less based on my personality. Now, yes, Ezra Firestone, the influencer, is saying these apps are working for me, you should buy them. And that's a big part of why it's gaining customers. But once you become a customer of Zipify, communications are coming from Zipify. You're being sold, you're engaging with the Zipify brand, which is an asset in and of itself. It's not just a cash flow business. In fact, it's making zero money. I'm losing money on it hand over fist at this stage, but I'm looking at it 5 years down the line, hoping that one day I'll be profitable with it, But so Zipify is designed to be an asset-based business built out of the Smart Marketer. But I think that success-wise, I'm very proud of what I've built with Smart Marketer and Zipify. I'm very proud of the community that I have. I really have loved doing that. And if you just look in terms of like what is more valuable in the world, it's definitely my e-commerce businesses. You could sell those for a lot more. They're worth a lot more as brands than my information publishing thing. But if you look at my enjoyment of working on these brands, I'd say it's about even. Like I love the influencer world. I love sharing what works for me. I love having my community of entrepreneurs and my mastermind. I love nerding out on my apps. Like I just love it. And I also love my direct to consumer physical product businesses, where I get the opportunity to create campaigns that go nationwide, because Smart Marketer and Zipify are very niche. Like we're a bunch of weirdos. Let's face it. You, me, all the people listening to this who are like focused on advertising physical product businesses and leveraging social media to spread messages through amplification. Like we're not normal people. We're a bunch of weirdos, a bunch of nerds who are into internet marketing. And I love us and I love my community, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's not going to ever be a mainstream thing, whereas these brands are mainstream and therefore much more valuable.
So as I look over the people that are in my sphere, right, of my social sphere, and I especially think about this because I recently stopped going to the Salt Lake City Angels meetings. We were looking at companies that already went through the phasing, and I'm sitting there saying, okay, we'll take this to the next level or not. I see this concept with young people, and by young, I mean in their late teens and early 20s, and they enter with an idea, and they believe that they need to go raise capital before they start. So I kind of want to put your thoughts on that. How much capital did you raise before you started, and have you ever raised capital?
It's funny you should ask that, because we're in conversations right now about doing a funding series. Everyone that I've talked to about venture capital who like, I know a lot of people who've taken real sums of money who now have multi-$100-million businesses. They're all like against it, because they're like, you lose your autonomy, you lose your freedom, you have to answer to a board of directors, you don't have any, it just changes the energetics of your business. I think that this idea that you need to go out and raise a bunch of money is ridiculous. Obviously, as someone who started with nothing and bootstrapped my way to having capital to invest in my own businesses. I've never taken a dollar from anyone. And I think that I understand why people take money now. I always looked at it as like, you'd be stupid to take money from someone because then you're in their pocket. And you know what? I don't want to be in someone's pocket, but I understand the risk portfolio gets insane. Like where I'm at now, the $20 million a year e-commerce business, the IRS, if I buy inventory, say I buy $2 million inventory and sitting in a warehouse, that's considered profit. I got to pay taxes on that before I've sold it. And so like, as you scale, the allure of having someone being willing to back your operation from a risk perspective and you, the human being, not being at risk for this company's success or failure is a lot more attractive. And it's why people take money, because they don't want to be personally reliable anymore. They want to give up 15% of their brand to now have the stress of this thing taken off of them. And I really understand that. And in fact, I think that when you look at a brand like mine, if I look at brands that have gone from the 20 million range to the 100, 200 million range, they've all had like one core skill set. Like we have the skill set of digital. We are phenomenal digital marketers, you know, and I obviously, this could be an ego-driven statement. My viewpoint of my skill set in digital, I guess, is not objective because it's me saying this, but like, I think I am as good as anyone in the world at digital strategy for e-commerce businesses. I really do think that. And I've proven that time and time again. And I've done growth plans for, you know, $100 million e-commerce brands and beyond and help them grow their business. Like I really understand this stuff. I've been doing it my whole adult life and I've been in it and I understand lifecycle customer marketing and analytics and data analysis and conversion. I just get it, you know, and it's because I grew up in it, you know, my brain was still forming while I was living in this, you know, so like, I really get this on a very deep level, how it works. And I've been able to successfully navigate it on several different occasions to prove that viewpoint to myself, that I understand how this works as good as anyone. But here's the thing, when you look at, so enough about how great I am. If you look at, you know, brands that have gone to the multi-$100 million range, it's usually they have one core skill set like us in digital, and then they partner with people to add on, for example, television or traditional retail or international and supply chain logistics or whatever it is. And we're at that stage now where we need a partner because we don't understand the TV, radio, newspaper, traditional press, international, supply chain logistics, marketplaces. We don't understand any of that stuff. And I don't want to go out and develop the skill set. So I would rather sell 10% of my company at whatever it's worth now to have the support from someone who has those connections to help me scale by 10x. So their 10% becomes worth 10 times what it was when they bought it, but I have a smaller piece of a much bigger pie. And I think that I understand why people take money at the stage I'm at now. But if I was just starting out, I would try really hard to not take money.
So when we look at these brands like Wayfair, Chewy, House, they sell for billions of dollars and they are infamously not profitable.
Yeah.
Or like Solar City. I used to be in solar. They spent $3 billion to make $1.5 billion. Well, what are your thoughts on this kind of, is this a bubble? Is there more to it? How are these?
You know, it's funny because you told me about this offline, like maybe 5 or 6 days ago. And I went and asked all my venture capital people that I've been talking to, my private equity people that I've been talking to about my brand. And their viewpoint on it was that actually when it comes to taking money, that they look at whether or not you're profitable a lot on the smaller scale, that these huge brands, sure, it happens a lot, but it is not actually the norm when you look at all the investments that are being made by VC and PE, venture capital private equity, into commerce businesses in particular, which is, by the way, a ton of investing that's happening from the 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million mark, these brands that at the stages we're playing at, profitability is actually really important. But as you grow larger and get more market share, then sure, market share becomes a very valuable asset for bigger brands that just want to buy up more market share. But that, like, where I'm at in my brand, my profitability is a huge feather in my cap and will get me a much higher revenue multiple because I have a $20 million a year brand that is immensely profitable. So it's a lot more appealing to potential investors. So I would say, you know, obviously if you can stay profitable, do so, you know, that's like a good thing. But then again, you know, I wouldn't be the best guy to talk to about this because I don't really know much about this world. I'm just starting to learn about it. I know about the direct response, bootstrapped, you know, physical products, direct to consumer, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure. I know that road because I've directly taken that road from zero to now where I'm at. So I really get that. But like, you look at bigger stuff, I'm not really the guy to talk to because I don't really know it. I know how to take someone who's got $100 million brand and say, do this, this, and this, and this to make more, to be more profitable, to have more repeat business, to have your direct response work better, to do a growth plan that's driven by paid amplification. Like, I know how to take any brand and make them more money through my direct response skill set, but I don't understand what is valuable to people who have money and isn't, and why you would sell and why you wouldn't. Like, I'm just learning that stuff.
So if all of a sudden tomorrow we woke up in a communist state and everything you have is taken away from you, you successfully get away and you're starting from scratch. You literally have nothing. What does that look like? Where do you identify what market you get into? And obviously your marketing is digital, but how do you identify, I'm going to go down this market. This is how I will start with nothing. What does that look like?
First thing that I do is I raise $500 and I throw a party, and I get anyone who's in that local community. I invite everyone. I tell them there's free booze, and I do stone soup, man. Bring what you can. I'll have some stones in a pot, throw some food in there, and I just start talking to people and seeing what's what and networking and paying attention and not just jumping at the first thing, but taking this lesson that I've learned about taking deliberate action and being a little bit slower and choosing wisely. I don't actually know what I would do, but I would start by looking at what everyone else is doing, for sure. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on with you? What market? I would throw that party. I think that's the way to start. Get a sense of the market by talking to people. And look, man, I'm good at storytelling. I think storytellers win. If you know how to tell a story, engage someone in a conversation, enroll them in an idea, have them feel like you're adding value to their life, you're gonna do well. So I would focus on storytelling of some variety. That's one of my specialties. That's what's, one of the reasons why I've been as successful as I have been, is I understand how to tell stories. And half of what I do in my information publishing brand is entertainment. I believe in edutainment. It's like we're educating and we're entertaining. And so that's why I have the shtick I have of like, I got this goofy personality and I play that up, and I'm a bit of a goofball and I make up funny names and I tell weird stories, because like that is actually who I am. And I think it lends itself to having a real connection with people and having them feel like I'm a real person and not just some bum talking about dry old stupid Facebook ads, which, let's face it, is like dry content. It's like, yeah, it's interesting and cool, but it's like, it's pretty dry. Here is the power editor. Click this button.
Yeah.
Add an audience or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like not gonna hack it if that's all you got.
Man, Ezra, that was probably the best. I've asked that question to a lot of people. That is probably the best answer, man. That's really,
Thanks.
really solid. Absolutely. Yeah. So in closing, where can people find you and your brands online?
You can go to smartmarketer.com, which is my blog, which has like videos and stuff for, e-commerce content and lifestyle content. And you can go to Zipify, ZIPIFY.com to check out my Shopify apps.
Awesome, brother. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, dude.
We'll chat with you soon.
See you later.